Good afternoon, everybody. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Troman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Les Truman, General Counsel. We have two individuals signed up for public comment today. The first one is John Alexander. Mr. Alexander, if you could unmute yourself and go ahead and begin.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing today? My name is John Alexander. I'm a disabled American veteran. I'm calling for case number 379-3724, 379-3724-3. I just wanted to bring to y'all attention. Me and a coworker got terminated for stale. I was a witness in my coworker termination case. He won his unemployment. Likewise, I wanted him to be a witness in my case, and I was denied that right. He was on there, he was up, and he was ready to be answer any questions. Second is the hearing officer herself found, I'll quote word for word, the hearing officer does not find that the claimant intentionally stole any merchandise as he was dropping a bag off at a co-worker house. She said, I didn't steal anything. That what I was fired for stealing. She said, I didn't steal nothing. I quote what she said. However, I was still denied my unemployment, sir. I don't understand. Can y'all please explain to me what the hearing officer means when she said I was found not guilty of stealing anything? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Alexander. The commission was not able to engage in dialogue, but if that's the end of the comments, let me know. Otherwise, you can proceed.
And then one other thing is she said, however, the bag contained merchandise that belongs to the employer. Not one picture or evidence was submitted that the stuff that came out the bag that the employee got. The bag would never return to the employer. So how did she determine that there was in the bag? Sir, this decision changed my life completely. I mean, it changed my life. And she simply said, I was not found guilty for stealing. You cannot let them keep changing the reason they fired me. You cannot let that happen. Thank you. You have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Second commenter is Anthony Ray Jr. If you could go ahead and unmute yourself and begin. Mr. Ray?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, hello. My name is Anthony Ray. You guys can hear me correct, right?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, my name is Anthony Ray. I am also a co-worker of Mr. John Alexander. I was, same thing, was let go last year due to the reason of what the company believed that was stealing, but due to with unemployment, they found that there's no evidence that support their claim. So I pretty much wanted to be a witness for Mr. John Alexander to prove that the case against us were wrong, which I had evidence that can support the claim. However, I wasn't able to be on the phone call with the person, the counselor that was in charge of Mr. Alexander's case. When John managed to get me on the phone, we both was able to speak to the person. However, she said, I will give you a call back, and never called me back. And when asked about it, she told me, hey, we're just going to move on with the case later on. Later on that day, I was able to managed to call the lady again, and she allowed me to speak off record with her involving Mr. John Alexander case. The reason why I'm calling to you guys is I know that everyone in this boardroom has families, and I'm just trying to do what's right to help Mr. Alexander. And I just pray that I can get another chance just to be able to help, and just to help this man who worked really hard for what he has done, and give him another chance so he can be able to get the things he deserves.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, that's the comments we have this afternoon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Troman. All right, moving on to agenda item 3. We have no cases to reconsider. Is that correct?
Correct. No cases.
On agenda item 4, this will be tax liability cases. We have no cases on docket 15, 1 case on docket 16, and 1 case on docket 17.
Good afternoon. For the record, Hugh Daniels, Special Program Appeals.
That is correct, Chairman Daniel. There are no tax liability cases on docket 15, but one case on docket 16 and one case on docket 17. The case number on docket 16 is TD-24-066-1224. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
The case number on docket 17 is TD-24-024-0524. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. That concludes tax liability cases for these dockets.
We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5, no child labor cases under agenda item 6. Under agenda item 7, we have one wage claim case on docket 16 and no wage claim cases on dockets 15 and 17. The one case on 16 is what's pulled for additional discussion.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The one case pulled in those 3 dockets is on docket 16. It's case number 23-061423-7. Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. I agree that the claimant was an employee, not a partner. Since the claimant had no investment in the business beyond her own time, the employer reported wages for her to the TWC, and the so-called partnership agreement was never signed by her or the company, and in fact referred to the claimant as a quote-unquote employee. Concerning the issue of wages owed, it is clear that after May 25th of 2025, the claimant and the employer never agreed on her rate of pay. According to the employer, the claimant agreed on May 25th, 2023, that until the business became profitable, her pay would be based on revenue she brought in. At her level within the company, she could have been a salaried exempt employee, but since the company based her pay on the quality and quantity of work performed, she did not meet the requirements of the exempt from overtime under the FLSA. Therefore, since the claimant and employer did not make a clear wage agreement, the claimant was entitled to minimum wage for all hours work starting on May 25th of 2023. Accordingly, we should find that the claimant was an employee and resubmit the case with a recalculation of the wages based on minimum wage starting on May 25th of 2023.
The decision is not supportable and should be reversed. The claimant's pay rate was bi-monthly salary of $7,025. The claimant provided credible evidence through testimony and pay stubs, which confirmed that she earned $68,412.68 in gross wages during the period she worked for the employer from 6/1 of 23 through 10/27 of 23. However, the employer provided inconsistent testimony regarding the wages paid to the claimant, and the credible evidence showed that they only paid her a total of $38,625 in gross wages in the form of direct deposits and Zelle payments for this period. Therefore, the employer still owes the claimant $29,787.68 in unpaid wages. Reverse the WCCAT $29,787.68 wages owed.
Reverse the AT, $29,787.68 wages owed.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. And that was the only case pulled for discussion on these 3 dockets. You should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for dockets 15, 16, and 17.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on dockets 15, 16, and 17.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting, as reflected in wage claim short form dissent lists for dockets 15, 16, and 17.
I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases on which I'm dissenting is reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for dockets 15, 16, and 17.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. We'll go to agenda item 8 in consideration of unemployment insurance cases. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 3225120, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be modified. I agree the claimant filed a valid claim. As to the job separation, the claimant was discharged due to not completing employer tasks as instructed. The employer's testimony should be given greater weight since the claimant's testimony contained inconsistencies. First, the claimant stated that she was not aware her job was in jeopardy prior to being terminated. However, the claimant later testified that her write-up notified her that her job was in jeopardy, even though she thought it wasn't in jeopardy. Although the claimant initially testified she could not recall whether certain lists were included in her file assignments, only to later state that she was certain that the lists were included. Accordingly, the claimant's failure to complete her tasks as instructed in light of being notified her job was in jeopardy constituted misconduct connected with work. We should therefore modify the AT decision, valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response, and the alternative, since it appears from the available record that the claimant was dealing with her own illness and the illness of her child during the time frame of the final incident. I could also agree that the job separation being viewed under a medical separation analysis. That would be modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI.
The decision is correct. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. Regarding the job separation, the employer testified that they discharged the claimant for not properly completing some of her required tasks. However, the claimant testified that she had completed all the tasks in question, and the employer did not provide specific details regarding what was incomplete. Additionally, the employer testified that the claimant had never consistently shown an ability to meet their performance expectations. Therefore, the employer has not met its burden of proving that the claimant's discharge was for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback.
Valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 347-3516, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision should be affirmed. The complainant established good cause for failing to appear at both prior hearings, and the claimant's petition to reopen was appropriately deemed timely. Regarding the job separation, the employer alleged that they discharged the claimant for being late to work. The employer only provided secondhand testimony to support their contention that the claimant was tardy on the final day of his employment. The claimant provided credible firsthand testimony denying the allegations of misconduct and also denied receiving any warnings about his attendance. Since the claimant's firsthand testimony should be given greater weight than the employer's hearsay evidence, the employer did not establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, claimant had good cause for missing AT2 and AT1, timely petition to reopen, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be modified. I don't contest the good cause or the timeliness issues. As to the job separation, the claimant was terminated for tardiness. The employer stated that the claimant has been warned multiple times about his attendance and tardiness issues. While the claimant generally denies wrongdoing, the employer's testimony should be given greater weight. The claimant stated he had never been told anything about his performance and that he was only late once. However, this statement strains credulity in light of the employer's multiple warnings contained in the available record. As such, the claimant's tardiness constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore modify the AT decision. The claimant had good cause for his non-appearance. The claimant filed a timely petition to reopen. The claimant had good cause for his non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. In the alternative, in its appeal to the commission, the employer has offered a witness who would like to provide and a write-up that the claimant signed off on. As such, I could agree to rehear this case concerning the job separation to allow the employer to present its witness and to enter its documentary evidence into the record.
Timely petition to reopen, good cause for AT1 and AT2, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And just to clarify, we are voting docket 15.
Case number 3617820, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant registered for the AT1 hearing within 2 minutes of the hearing's start time. He testified that he had called in just a little late because he was driving back from a job interview and had limited cell phone service at that time. Therefore, since the claimant clearly made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, but was prevented from doing so by circumstances beyond his control, he established good cause for missing AT1, and the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony. Reverse the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, resubmit.
The AT decision should be affirmed. As to good cause, there's a lack of sufficient evidence to establish that the claimant was prevented from attending the hearing due to circumstances beyond his control. As such, the claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance. Regarding job separation, the AT's decision to leave the underlying determination in full force of effect is supportable. The employer provided documentary evidence to establish that the claimant offered to produce fraudulent certificates for other employees, which was against company policy. Accordingly, the claimant's action constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance. There'll be misconduct, no chargeback.
Good cause, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3637-568, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not supportable. We have already voted to deem the claimant's CA appeal timely. According to the underlying issues, this case involves a continued claim related to the claimant's working as a marketplace contractor in self-employment. As such, there is no separation from employment, and the continued claim should be voided. Deem the CA appeal timely, set aside the AT decision, void the continued claim.
Regarding the timeliness of the claimant's appeal to the commission, we previously voted to find the appeal timely. Concerning the job separation, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant stopped working due to a lack of transportation. Since this was a personal reason, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. Because the disqualification is appropriate, the resulting overpayment is also appropriate. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving overpayment.
Set aside the AT, deem commission appeal timely, void the continued claim, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3639277, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be modified. I agree that the employer had good cause for its non-appearance. Good cause for its non-appearance. As to the job separation, the claimant voluntarily quit the job. The claimant was required to cross-train for another job duty so that the employees could help each other out. This indicates that the requirement was instituted to ensure the orderly flow of work at the business. This was a reasonable employer requirement and did not provide the claimant good cause to quit. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. The employer had good cause for its non-appearance, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. I will not contest that the employer had good cause for its failure to appear at AT1. Regarding the job separation, the evidence established that the claimant, who was not hired to be a welder and had no prior experience as a welder, was told by the employer that he would be required to cross-train to perform welding duties. The claimant had not been informed of this requirement at hire and had not agreed to take on an inherent risk that comes with welding when he accepted the job. The claimant informed the employer that he did not want to train as a welder, but was told that it was mandatory. Since the claimant's hiring agreement was changed due to the duties that carry an inherent degree of risk, which the claimant had not agreed to at the time of hire, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, employer established good cause for AT1, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
Good cause, rehear for hiring agreement and firsthand testimony on claimant's job duties.
I'll support rehear.
Thank you, sir. We will rehear the case.
Case number 3663155, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. As we have previously voted, the claimant had good cause for her failure to appear at AT1. Regarding the separation, the employer discharged the claimant, but failed to respond to the claim or appear at the hearing. The claimant denied under oath any wrongdoing, and the employer failed to provide any evidence of the reason for the separation. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of establishing that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, no misconduct.
We should modify the AT decision. On a previous docket, we voted that the claimant established good cause. Concerning the merits, the claimant described herself as a disgruntled employee who was not satisfied with various aspects of her job. She cited the employer's 8 to 5 schedule, which was incompatible with the claimant's lifestyle, as she needed a free or flexible schedule where she could come and go as she pleased. She was also not promoted as quickly as she expected and felt certain promises had been made, even though nothing was in writing. Furthermore, for several months, the claimant and the employer did not agree on the vision for her position, despite there being no changes to the hiring agreement. Because the evidence indicates that the claimant was not willing to follow the terms of her hiring agreement, she was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision. The claimant had good cause for her non-appearance misconduct.
Good cause, misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3702-779, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was laid off after the project he was working on had ended. The claimant provided firsthand testimony that no further work was available to him after 10/8/21, and that he was told that he could go. The employer did not provide any firsthand testimony regarding whether further work would be made available to the claimant. Since the claimant was not offered additional work after receiving his final paycheck, the claimant was laid off due to lack of work. Therefore, the claimant was separated for reasons other than misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct. In the alternative, I could agree to rehear this case so that further testimony could be obtained about whether continuing work was made available to the claimant on 10/8/21 after the project that he was working on was completed and the claimant was given his final paycheck. Rehear.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant's testimony was neither credible or persuasive. His testimony was not consistent with the fact-finding statements he provided TWC just a couple of months earlier. When questions about the discrepancies, he was vague, evasive, and changed his testimony and version of events several times. On the other hand, the employer has provided consistent and credible evidence that the claimant simply stopped showing up to work without notice while further work was available. Accordingly, the employer has met its burden of proving that the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision of misconduct.
Misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3735-671, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. Claimant was terminated for violating the employer's policy, which prohibited employees from showing the contents of their cell phones to residents. Although the claimant alleged that he was trying to de-escalate a possible confrontation, the claimant's assertion is neither credible nor persuasive. The employer's witness testified that the claimant violated professional boundaries and ethics by attempting inappropriate physical contact with a resident and subsequently displaying the contents of his cell phone in violation of policy. Moreover, the resident's witness statement exposed multiple prior instances of the claimant inappropriately sharing intimate details of his personal life in front of residents at the employer's facility. Since the claimant violated the employer's rules, his actions amounted to misconduct connected with work. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged due to allegations that he violated the employer's ethics policies. The complainant provided credible and consistent firsthand testimony denying the allegations of misconduct. And the employer provided no firsthand testimony regarding any specific action that violated the employer's policies. The employer's testimony was based solely on their interpretation of the claimant's actions from a surveillance video that did not include audio. Therefore, the employer has failed to establish that the claimant engaged in actions that could be considered misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. That is the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 15. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 15.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 15.
I'd like to take a moment to make a motion to resubmit case 379-3724.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
We'll resubmit that case.
I'll dissent on that.
It'll be resubmitted, sir. Since there's no decision, there will be no dissent until the
Okay.
decision is issued. Okay.
And
Yes, sir.
I second the motion the chairman made, except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 15.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 15.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you. Moving on to docket 16.
Case number 3595217, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT's good cause decision. The claimant received the hearing notice late due to circumstances solely within his power to control. The claimant moved and failed to update his address with TWC. As a claimant and appellant, it was his responsibility to ensure that TWC had his correct mailing address. Updating his address with USPS was insufficient. He was also required to inform our agency, TWC. Because he did not update his address with TWC, the claimant has not shown good cause for his non-appearance. Concerning the merits, the employer met its burden of proving that the claimant was the aggressor in a verbal and physical altercation with a coworker. Accordingly, the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with work. We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for missing his non-appearance. Valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. I agree that the claimant established good cause for missing AT1 because the claimant's receipt of the hearing packet was delayed by the forwarding process when he was in the middle of moving, and he had not yet changed his address of record because he was not currently filing claims with TWC. I also agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. Regarding the job separation, the employer discharged the claimant due to alleged confrontation with another employee. The claimant provided credible firsthand testimony, denying the allegations of misconduct, while the employer only presented secondhand hearsay testimony. Therefore, the employer has not met its burden of proving that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback.
Valid claim, good cause, rehear for firsthand testimony and employer policy.
We have not yet achieved a majority vote. We'll rehear the case. Thank you.
Case number 3672727, Commissioner Trevino.
While the claimant filed his appeal to the commission a few days after the deadline, this case involves a continued claim related to the claimant working as a marketplace contractor in self-employment. As such, there was no separation from employment, and the continued claim should be voided. Deem the claimant's CA appeal timely, set aside the AT decision, void the continued claim.
We should dismiss the claimant's commission appeal. The appeal was filed 5 days late, and the claimant does not allege any exception to the timeliness rules. Thus, we don't have the jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Late commission appeal, leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect.
Deem commission appeal timely, resubmit.
I'll agree with the chairman's motion.
Thank you. We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3755808, Commissioner Esparza.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. The claimant contends that his dancing and miming were part of a modality used to de-escalate rambunctiousness behavior of a client. The employer stated that the claimant's action agitated the client and was asked to leave by 2 security officers due to his behavior. It does not appear that the employer was asked directly whether the claimant's use of dancing and miming were an acceptable modality to calm the patient behavior. If such a modality was not acceptable, the claimant would have been in violation of the employer's conflict resolution in the workplace policy. The employer was also stated that there is a video and that it referenced as part of its investigation into the incident, and the same should be requested for a rehearing. As such, we should rehear the case to further develop the record on the employer's policies and procedures and the video footage of the incident.
The decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant for allegedly engaging in inappropriate behavior that violated the employer's policies. The claimant provided credible and consistent firsthand testimony, denying the employer's allegation that he failed to follow the employer's proper procedure regarding the final incident. The employer failed to provide any firsthand testimony or direct evidence to support their allegations of misconduct regarding the final incident. Therefore, the employer has not met its burden of showing that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer, not billed, adequate employer response.
I'll support the commissioner, or I'll support the chairman on that.
Thank you. Majority vote is misconduct, employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3828632, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for violating the employer's policy regarding failure to report citations to the employer within 48 hours. The claimant was unaware of the citation since she received by mail until she saw it. And then she reported it to the employer the day after that she had viewed it, after receiving it in the mail. The employer failed to respond to the claim or to appear at the hearing to provide any evidence regarding the requirements of its policy or the reasonableness of those requirements relating to citations received by mail. Since the claimant made a good faith effort to comply with the employer's policy and the employer failed to provide any evidence regarding the reasonableness of its policy, the evidence does not establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant's testimony was elusive, contradictory, and oftentimes inconsistent. The claimant was terminated when she failed to timely inform the employer about a criminal citation. Although the claimant received the citation and was aware of the employer's 48-hour window to report the incident, the claimant admitted she failed to follow the employer's rules. Since the claimant failed to follow the employer's rules on reporting, her inaction constituted misconduct connected with work. As such, we should affirm the AT decision of misconduct.
Misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. That was the last unemployment insurance case pulled for additional discussion on docket 16. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 16.
I move we accept the staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 16.
I second the motion, except for those cases which I am dissenting, as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 16.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases of which I am dissenting is reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 16.
That motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you. Proceeding to docket 17.
Case number 3331998, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. I agree that the claimant established good cause for missing AT1. However, regarding the timeliness issues, the determination in this case were not issued until several months after the claimant had stopped filing claims, so the claimant had no reason to expect further electronic correspondence from the commission. Additionally, the claimant testified that since she had already submitted the requested proof of employment for her PUA claim, she was told by several commission representatives that she did not need to file an appeal. Therefore, the claimant's appeal should be deemed timely based on the commission's misinformation and the case resubmitted for consideration of merits. Modify the AT, Claimant had good cause for AT1. Timely claimant appeal. Resubmit.
The record in this case is unclear as to whether the claimant actually sent anything to TWC via the UI documentation portal on August 9th, 2021. That would have been timely for the PUA documentation deadline of August 25th, 2021. However, the same TWC acknowledgement message sent via email 84 seconds after 2:50 p.m. on August 9th of 2021 has a timestamp in the body of that message dated exactly 2 full years later. In addition, the acknowledgement message indicates that the claimant transmitted a PDF file named SSP-USADV.pdf, yet no such file is in the record. Accordingly, to resolve these loose ends, we should resubmit this case on a later docket for more information about the document dated August 9th of 2021. Specifically, we need to find out why the email sent date and the timestamp for the secure submission of an unknown file by the claimant shows dates that are exactly 2 years apart in the same message, and why the TWC UI submission secure acknowledgement receipt would show that a file with a specific name was sent by the claimant via the portal and received by TWC, with no record that it was saved or processed after receipt.
Timely appeal, good cause, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3642909, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant missed the AT1 hearing scheduled at 7:30 a.m. because he had tonsillitis. He also called in just a few minutes late in an attempt to get the hearing rescheduled for when he would be able to speak and provide testimony. Since the claimant was sick on the morning of the hearing, and since he was only a few minutes late in calling to request a postponement, he should be granted good cause and the case resubmitted for merits testimony. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should affirm the AT decision. Concerning good cause, although the claimant alleged medical reasons for his inability to attend the AT hearing, he failed to provide any documentation to substantiate his claims. Since the claimant was not prevented from attending the AT hearing due to circumstances beyond his control, he did not establish good cause. Concerning job separation, despite multiple reprimands, the claimant was separated for the unauthorized use of his cell phone and thereafter being a no-call and no-show for multiple workdays leading to his separation. As such, the claimant's actions amounted to misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT. Claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Misconduct, no chargeback.
Good cause, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3652191, Commissioner Sparzo.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for call avoidance. An audit revealed she was transferring calls when she was trained to handle. Despite being instructed by her supervisor to ask for help when needed, the claimant admitted to not asking for help during the final incident because she did not want to be a bother. Because the claimant was aware of the employer's zero tolerance call avoidance policy and chose not to ask for help, she mismanaged her position of employment. Reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant for not meeting their performance expectations. The claimant asked for assistance when her job duties multiple times, but the employer did not help her, leading to the claimant making errors despite working to the best of her ability. Since the claimant was terminated for her inability to meet the employer's performance standards, she was separated for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And just to confirm for the record, you had adequate employer response, Mr. Chairman? Thank you, sir.
Case number 3672361, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant registered for the AT1 hearing just 1 minute late, which was in part because of her having to get her children ready that morning. The claimant made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, but was only a minute late in registering. Good cause should be granted and the case resubmitted for merits testimony from AT2. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should modify the AT decision concerning good cause. Although the claimant received the hearing packet, she failed to timely register because she misread the instructions for registering. Since the claimant was not prevented from participating in the AT hearing due to circumstances beyond her control, she did not establish good cause. Concerning the job separation, the claimant was separated when she refused to inform the employer about the details of her arrest in violation of the employer's policy. As such, the claimant's actions constituted misconduct connected with work. Modify the AT decision. The claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Misconduct, no chargeback, correct employer name and account number.
Good cause, correct the employer name and account, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3695252, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant planned to participate in the AT1 hearing using Wi-Fi calling. This was the only method that the claimant had available to him, as he did not have a phone and his hearing was scheduled prior to the posted opening time of his local workforce office. However, the claimant was delayed in registering for the hearing due to unexpected internet connectivity issues at the time of the hearing. Since the claimant made good faith effort to participate in the hearing, but was prevented from attending by circumstances beyond his control, he established good cause for missing AT1. Modify the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should modify the AT decision. Concerning the good cause issue, the claimant knew that he had been having internet issues, but made no alternative arrangements to participate in the hearing. Since the claimant was not prevented from participating due to circumstances beyond his control, he failed to establish good cause. As to the merits, the claimant was reportedly unprofessional, argumentative, and confrontational in his interactions with coworkers. His behavior resulted in 2 grievances filed against him, which the employer substantiated after an investigation. Thus, because the claimant mismanaged his position of employment, he was discharged for misconduct connected with work. Modify the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, sever the adequate response issue.
Good cause, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3699112, Commissioner Esparza.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant was terminated for driving the employer's company truck in violation of company policy and state traffic laws. Although the claimant alleged that he entered the HOV lane to avoid an accident, the claimant's assertion is without merit. The claimant testified that the accident transpired more than 6 to 7 vehicles in front of him, which would have provided him ample time to move to an adjacent non-HOV lane to avoid the accident. Furthermore, the employer reviewed video evidence of the incident, and there was no indication of an accident, just the claimant traveling through the HOV lane without authorization. Finally, the employer explained that the video was triggered by the claimant's unsafe following distance, a recurring issue for which he had previously been reprimanded. Consequently, the claimant's deliberate violation of both state law and company policy constitutes misconduct connected with the work. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
The AT decision is not supportable. Though the claimant admits that he drove the company truck in an HOV lane, he provided credible and consistent testimony that his actions were taken to avoid an accident. The claimant cannot be faulted for driving defensively and taking actions which, though admittedly prohibited, avoided a potentially worse outcome. Therefore, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear for the employer to submit the video of the final incident.
I'll change mine to a rehear.
Thank you. We will rehear the case.
Case number 3704810, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was terminated due to attendance-related issues. Final incident consisted of the claimant being late due to oversleeping. While the claimant contends that she was not given the full benefit of the employer's disciplinary policy, her credibility suffers from two inconsistencies, one having to do with her write-up history and the other in connection with her knowledge about her attendance point total. Since both inconsistencies related to the employer's disciplinary processes, the AT's ruling that the claimant mismanaged her position of employment is supportable. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for attendance. Though the claimant admits that being tardy to work on the final incident, she provided credible and consistent testimony that when she had previously been warned, she was told that a further attendance infraction will result in a final warning and suspension, but instead, she was terminated. She also testified that the employer's attendance policy was a point system, but that she was never advised of her point balance. Since the employer did not appear at the hearing to provide testimony regarding the specifics of their policy and how it was violated by the claimant, and since the evidence established that the employer did not follow their own progressive disciplinary policy by issuing the complainant a final warning, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3705901, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for two instances of verbal abuse directed at her students. Following parent complaints, the employer investigated and substantiated the allegations. In the absence of testimony from the claimant, the employer has met its burden of proving that the claimant behaved inappropriately and violated policy. Accordingly, because the claimant mismanaged her position of employment, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The employer discharged the claimant but provided no testimony or documentary evidence to support their allegations of misconduct. The claimant denied the allegations in her statements to the claims examiner, and the employer's witness provided no specific testimony or evidence to refute those statements. Therefore, the employer failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
One moment, please. Okay, just going back to confirm one vote. This is case number 3652191. 3652191 is the third case on docket 17. And I just wanted to confirm your vote, Commissioner Esparza. What was your vote on adequate response?
Adequate employer response. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. That concludes the pulled cases on docket 17. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 17.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting, as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take a short recess.
Oh, really? Yes. They'll leave the Sunday mornings. That's for me. That's policy. Leave it off Sunday. But if you've ever been to a wedding, you know, somebody like clean out a gas can. Yeah.
This is agenda item 9, AEL Integrated Education and Training and Corrections Education.
Good afternoon, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Esparza, Commissioner Trevino, and Mr. Serna. For the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. In August of 2022, the Texas Workforce Commission entered into an interagency contract with Wyndham School District to create and implement an integrated education and training program for individuals who are within 2 years of release of certain state correctional facilities. The initiative also assists in connecting these individuals with services and employment related to their training. Since its launch, the program has expanded to include 2 additional facilities and 2 additional training program options. More than 500 individuals have been assessed as potential candidates for the program, and more than 250 have been enrolled. The cost per participant has been higher than originally projected by Wyndham School District, but completions and outcomes are meeting expectations. To continue to enroll participants through August 2025, staff recommend an additional $140,000 to serve approximately 75 additional individuals this fiscal year. This concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Comments or questions?
None here.
Here, I've got some clarifying questions. I'm very supportive of this program, and as I understand it, it's positive execution by the group. We can understand that there's a miscalculation or need to review that. My clarification is, I want to know where the method of funding for the original $750,000 was from, and what is the additional? Where does the additional 140? Where will that come from?
The original 750, sir, just to be really upfront about it, this was so new to both TWC and to Wyndham School District. It was our best estimate at what would launch a robust program for this first time. When staff and Wyndham School District staff were first talking about cost per participants, we were working in theoretical and assuming that cost per participant might be similar to what the commission has adopted through our own programs. When Wyndham School District launched this, they encountered startup costs that they hadn't first
Yeah, I saw
expected.
that.
And they also were learning the ropes of this program too. And for that reason, they learned that cost per participant within Wyndham was going to be a little bit higher than expected. You are right, outcomes are looking good. It appears to be a very successful program. Based on what they know now, they anticipate that they can finish up these individuals with an additional $140,000 to cover these remaining costs.
Okay, I may have missed it, but where does that 750,000 come from, the original investment?
Oh, my apologies.
that well?
That is part of the AEL Commission Reserve.
Okay, so that's statewide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I think that cancels out any other questions that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Carrie.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the allocation of $140,000 in additional fiscal year 2025 funds to the current interagency cooperation contract with Wyndham School District in support of the Integrated Education and Training Program as recommended today by staff.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Motion carries. Thank you. So agenda item 10, board nominations.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, Mr. Cerna. For the record, my name is Dawn Cronin with the Workforce Development Division. For your consideration this afternoon, we have the Workforce Board nominations for Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast. Staff recommends approval on the presented nominees as they appear in your materials, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
Not for me.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the local Workforce Development Board member nominees presented today for the following: Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there an executive director's report today?
No, sir.
Is there any other, yeah, before we abandon the executive director's report, so I don't know if somebody five-finger discounted my pens or they got moved, but can I requisition one of those pens with like a cable on it, like you get at the bank? It is like on the table.
We can find the one with the chain.
A chain would be nice.
Yeah.
A chain would be nice, especially if it has one of those little cups that you put it in when you're done. That feels very professional when you get to do that.
We'll get you something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Cerna. Is there any other order of business to come before the commission? Nothing?
None.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned.